I don't think that it's very effective for the children to have people on the other side of the aisle come in and accuse Republicans of being complicit in murder, and that we put our right to kill over others' right to live, to infer by rhetorical supposed questions, who are you here for? We must be here for the gunman, is an outrage. How dare you? You think we don't have hearts? It's just that when we look at the things that you're doing and you're trying to do to America, we've seen the carnage. I mean, for heaven's sake, let's take example. Democrats control the major cities that have the worst murder rates. That's right. Your ideas have been shown to get people killed. Are you here for the murderers in Chicago, in Philadelphia, in these other major cities, because you're wanting to do nationally what is being done by Democrats in those big cities? We care about people. We care about their lives. And lives have been so trivialized. We care deeply. How dare you? How dare you, you arrogant people, attributing murder to those of us that want to do things to stop it? Because we've seen what your ideas do. They create more murder. If you could just possibly get off any kind of arrogant stepladder that allows you to look down on us and look back historically. Thomas Jefferson was not at the Constitutional Convention, but he said in a letter, if I could change one thing, it would be to require bills to be on file for a year before they're voted on, because he understood the mistakes that are made when you rush and make big decisions out of emotion. That's what we're trying to prevent so that we can save lives and keep people from being killed. For heaven's sake, I think back historically, we had a president in Franklin Roosevelt that on D-Day led the country in a 6 to 8 minute prayer for our troops. And now we had a president come on after Uvalde and he used God's name in vain. Most of us would consider it. It was used as an interjection, not as a source from whom to beg for wisdom, like this country did for most of our history. Since the 60s, we really started having these mass shootings. Perhaps there was something in the 60s, maybe some Supreme Court decisions that gave rise to people being taught in school. It's whatever you think feels good. Well, it's time to get common sense back.
Not for nothing, but Louis Gohmert asking the question, do you think we don't have hearts, while simultaneously blocking any and all gun safety reforms in the immediate aftermath of 19 children being slaughtered in their school, kinda answers itself, doesn't it? Here's the thing, while Louis Gohmert and his Republican colleagues are clutching their pearls at the very notion that they don't care about the kids that are being killed on a daily basis, I would just ask, what are they doing to stop more kids from being killed on a daily basis? It's all well and good that Louis Gohmert likes to yell into his camera during this hearing, but beyond that, a single bill, a single idea, a single fix? If these people are trying to show that they care, then they might want to consider actually doing something to prove it. But then Louis Gohmert actually blames Democrats, claiming that Democrats oversee the highest murder rates. So let's look at that claim, since this seems to be a favorite platitude on the right. According to a comprehensive study from Third Way, it turns out that the most recent data shows that per capita murder rates are, on average, 40% higher in the states that Trump won compared to those that Biden won. In fact, 8 of the top 10 worst murder rate per capita states voted for Trump in 2020. But let's go further into the cities. Republican-led Jacksonville, Florida has a per capita murder rate more than 3 times higher than New York. Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma City both have per capita murder rates that triple and double, respectively, that of New York City. Bakersfield and Fresno, California each have Republican mayors and have higher per capita murder rates than Los Angeles or San Francisco. So while Democrat-led cities like Chicago have high murder rates, so do plenty of Republican-controlled cities. So I get that blindly pointing to the cities as a catch-all for Democratic policy failure is easy, but Republicans have nothing to brag about and should probably worry about cleaning up not only their own cities, but their states too. And just to build on that, it doesn't look like it's trending in the right direction in red states either. The state with the highest percent increase in per capita murder rate, Wyoming, with a 91.7% increase. The second highest state, South Dakota, with a 69% increase. In fact, 6 of the top 10 states with the highest percent increases in per capita murder rates are red states, and besides Wyoming and South Dakota, include Nebraska, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Kansas. Not exactly liberal bastions, are they? You know which states aren't even in the top 10? New York or California or Illinois, all of the right's favorite punching bags. It's almost like they need a refresher on their talking points. But let's take a look at the specific issue of guns now, since that's what we're talking about. First of all, I know Republicans love to point to Chicago, so it would probably behoove us to ask where the majority of guns came from that have allowed crime to rise there. Turns out 60% of firearms come from other states with decidedly lax gun restrictions. So I get that it's convenient to pretend that Chicago is some neat little example of Democratic failure, but crime wouldn't be a fraction of what it was in that city if it weren't for the easy availability of weapons in surrounding Republican-led states. Now let's take a look at firearm mortality rate by state to stay on the topic of guns. Of the 15 states with the highest firearm mortality rates, 13 are Republican. 13 out of 15. And look, none of this is to say that crime isn't an issue in a number of states and cities across the country, red and blue. But to frame crime as a uniquely Democratic problem is not only outdated, it is outright wrong. But the issue here isn't about where the problems are bad, because gun violence has led to bad outcomes everywhere. We know it's bad. We are past that point. The point now is what's being done to fix it. It's easy to point to Chicago and complain, but knowing that people are dying in Chicago and Bakersfield and Fresno and Tulsa and Oklahoma City, you either have solutions or you refuse all of the solutions. And if you refuse them, then the only possible explanation is that you're fine with the status quo, which means daily mass shootings. So Louis Gohmert can frantically yell through Zoom until he's blue in the face, but the simple fact is that he's not lifted a finger to fix anything, to change anything. If he's trying to prove that he's not, quote, complicit in murder, then do something, anything, to show it. Pass a background checks law, pass a red flag law, raise the age to own a gun to 21, close the Charleston loophole, have some spine and pass an assault weapons ban, just like the one that worked in 1994. And if you're not willing to do any of that, I'm sorry, but you don't get to have a fainting spell when you're accused of protecting the killers over the victims. So beyond the theatrics, focus on what these elected officials do rather than what they say. They have the power to elicit change in this country at a time when it is so desperately needed. Whether they exercise that power for good will do all the talking for them. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And to support my work beyond that, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I cover the week's most important stories and interview the biggest players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, and so many more. The link is also right here on this screen. And finally, to take action yourself and sign petitions on the most important issues, go to briantylercohen.com/petition.